Swedish death metal hails from Rauta. Today's band comes from Sweden. And it's a band you might know, but you probably don't. Why you might? Because this band actually started in 1992, so not too long after, bands like Dismember and Entombed making their way, and not to mention other bands, about Swedish death metal scene. However, this band kind of vanished in the thin air soon after, and even though they did record some of the demos, it seems like the band didn't become back on the map until very much late in the 2000s. Now I got the pleasure to introduce you to In Pain releases with this dual review. First of all, I got this sent to this debut album, which we have here, The Sound of Death, as well as the one from previous year, this Summoning the Dead EP. This was more to kind of show how the band has progressed or evolved since it to this debut album, but I'm gonna talk about them both because why not leave this one without a review when I actually had it here. And let's start with chronological order. So this is MCD with 4 tracks. They're both released by South Coast Productions, residing in Sweden, which just happens to be a label run by one of these guys in the band. So here's the CD inlay. As you can see, this was South Coast Productions 2018. 4 tracks, roughly quarter of an hour. This is how the MCD looks like. And it's 4 tracks of very traditional Swedish death metal, mid-tempo, very kind of a low and heavy stuff. By low, I mean low-tuned. And here's the lineup. Mika is being the label guy, and the rest, well, you can pretty much read drums, guitar, vocals, Mattias, Vigren, Matte, Mika, very Swedish names. And, well, these guys are doing very much a homage to this Swedish death metal akin to what was done in early 90's, mid 90's, and so forth, especially by bands like Dismember and Entombed. Then again, you cannot really forget bands like Grave, and of course those Dismember and Entombed predecessors, that is Nihilist and Carnage. But basically, if I just go Sunlight Sound death metal, you get pretty much to know what it is. And if you don't know what Sunlight death metal is, well, boy, you have lots to learn. And this is the 2019 release by South Coast. Also, this is the full-length album, The Sound of Death. I gotta say, I really like the name. It's very bombastic. It's very much like, hey, we're doing death metal. As you can see, 10 tracks. And however, it's produced by Thomas Sunlight Studio, Skogsberg. So it's very Skogsberg. So it's kind of like very traditional Swedish death metal. Once again, no lyrics included whatsoever. There's this coffin image with lineup of 5 guys this time. Niklas, Mika, Matte, Vigren, Mattias. So, death metal the Swedish way. What could go wrong? Basically, nothing could go absolutely wrong when we're talking about old school Swedish death metal. But let's be honest about it. This is not exactly groundbreaking in 2019 or now 2020, because basically everything here within has been done so many times in 1990s and even afterwards. Now, this is kind of a tricky thing with In Pain. So basically they're repeating the history with some like decent quality death metal. They're doing some nice riffs, melodic, mid-tempo pounding and crowding, proper growly vocals. So there are no real like mistakes or anything like that happening with either of these releases. But the downside is of not being original and anything like unique is that, well, they are basically just doing what has been done so many times again and again. Now, it obviously depends how much you actually like basic Swedish death metal, because basic Swedish death metal is much like basic Norwegian black metal, Norsk black metal. in the sense that while it's good and decent and all that stuff, it really isn't that big of a deal once you have those classics, those gems and jewels of the crown, and you enjoy them. But if you are really like a maniac of the genre, if you like really have to have everything from dismember to grave and so forth, like, then these are probably just right for you. They are pretty nice to listen to, but they are not there to make this wow effect. So to pick one from these two, it's kind of a hard because there is not much of a progress within 1 year. This is easier to digest, being only roughly some 16-17 minutes, while this is kind of a tough cookie to crack, being a full-length album with this kind of death metal. However, this is not just one trick pony, because there are tracks which just kind of outshine the others. For example, this last track, Rise from the Deep, is actually more melodic, even kind of melancholic in its melodic sense, and it's nicely chosen to be the last track, because it quickly points out that this is not one trick pony, just copy-paste riffs. Then again, there are also tracks like this Zombie Front, which is one of the most boring tracks on the album, being kind of a copy-paste song. So in many ways, this is kind of like, it has some hits and it has some misses. It's definitely more on the good side than mediocre side, but still it's not something that makes me want to go wow. Anyway, should you be a Swedish death metal maniac, I can pretty much suggest you either one of these, and maybe the rest are as good. I wouldn't know. If I just had to be the winner, because that's the deal with the dual review, obviously I would go with the full-length album. It's more for your bucks and it's more diverse than this EP. But these are very close to each other in quality, in terms of quality. So it doesn't matter which way you go. Go with the cheaper one if you're a this kind of a guy who are like I'm doubting what you say, Cherry. But I mean, if you're not short of money and you love Swedish death metal, just go for both. Or if you have maybe even others, a nice band to get to know too. And I'm looking forward to see where this band evolves in 2020. So be sure to check out In Pain, should you be Swedish death metal mania. Thank you for watching. Take care.